Welcome out, everybody, to the Screaming Boy Podcast, episode number 22. And we are here tonight with Josh Calandros and Adam Runyon. And we are excited to talk, just sit around and bullcrap tonight because it is on one of our favorite subjects. It is Mystery Science Theater night. Mystery Science Theater 3000, of course, we know has just returned to Netflix. But Mystery Science Theater 3000 ran from 1989 to 1999 when it first came out. So it is quite possibly one of my favorite shows to date. I mean, it is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen, and I was pumped that they brought it back. So first and foremost, Josh, how you doing tonight? What's going on, man?
I am doing very good. We started talking before we started recording, which means I'm already on beer number 2 at home. So it's probably going to be a good one. But I'm super pumped about this, and kind of like you were saying, I'm not as much of like a movie buff or just a general TV buff as you are or some of the guests are on the shows and stuff. But for me, my entire sense of humor, not just for what I like to watch or see, but like how I act and like how I interact with friends and talk and joke around about stuff, comes down to 2 things. 1 is The Simpsons and 2 is Mystery Science Theater, and which one has more influence on my general overall taste and sense of humor changes every day. Like it was huge for me, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
Good. Adam, what's going on tonight, man?
Oh man, lots and lots and lots. And by that I mean nothing.
I know the feeling there.
I mean, it's just I've gone to the store. I went and got gas a little while ago, and I mean, just a normal Monday.
You're an adult now, sir.
I mean, that's what adulting is all about. If somebody had told me this is what adulting would be like, I would have found a way to Neverland or something, because it's not what it's all cracked up to be. Even though you can eat candy for breakfast, you're gonna regret it.
I often do eat candy for breakfast.
I don't know why I'm talking about this.
Adult stuff.
So Mystery Science Theater. I was first introduced to Mystery Science Theater in high school, and my friends were like, you have to watch this. Now, I was hanging out with a crew in high school, Jeremy Prodmore, Jared Lowe. We had Mike Ferris, not Mikey Ferris. That's wow. I'm going to have to edit that one out. I wish I will. So I was first introduced to Mystery Science Theater in high school, and it was Jared, Jeremy, Mike, me, Sean, and we. I remember it was mostly like, I remember Jeremy specifically telling me about Mystery Science Theater and Jared, and it was on the same level. You have to, to kind of be their friend, I had to watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Monty Python. I had to catch Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail on Comedy Central and record it and watch it. So I did both of those. I started watching Mystery Science Theater. When I first watched it, I was like, what in God's name am I watching? And it was one of those things where, like, I think I came in on the middle of it where they were sitting in the theater, and it was of course, Crow, Tom Servo, and Joel sitting there just riffing on a movie. And then after I started listening to him, making fun of this movie, I was like, and it was one of the worst movies I'd ever seen. And I was like, I could really get into this. This is incredible. And it was my, but just like you said, my kind of humor, how I interacted with people. So high school was definitely, it was one of those things where, like, I had to watch it every time it came on, or I had to, set the VCR to record it. For those of us who know what a VCR is, I had to set it to record it and watch it. So it was just one of those. It was just an incredible show that had this really, really, really broke feeling to it. And when I say broke, I mean monetarily broke. But that's what made it amazing, is because they obviously couldn't afford the best, special effects or costumes or.
Well, the cool thing there too was, like, looking back on it, yeah, dude, like, it was super low budget, but at the time, and so I also think it's important for us to, like, put a frame of reference on when we saw it, because before we started recording, I said I'm really excited to, like, this is the first time I've actually sat and tried to pay attention to a general guesstimate on when I started watching it. So the original run. Like, there was the pilot season from 88 to 89, but Adam, I actually don't know where you grew up, but, like, Ronnie and I were originally from, like, the Southern West Virginia area. So it was like, we were not going to get Minneapolis public access TV. So we didn't get that pilot season or anything. Right. But the original run after that went from 89 to 96, and sitting here thinking about it, my friend Jared McAllister and I would watch them, like, almost religiously. And whenever I was in junior high, so I was going to Central Junior High School, which was 94 to 95, 96, somewhere around that time frame, which would have put this at, like, the 5th or 6th season.
Right.
Yeah. So junior high, I was, like 14, 15, 16 years old or something like that. So you're kind of starting to get in that point in my life, at least, where I'm trying to understand what is or isn't cool, and gradually understanding that I don't really care what's cool.
Finding your own sense of humor.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that was really big for me.
Yeah, I was the same way. I think it was probably for me. I think actually watching, I remember seeing it on Comedy Central back probably 93, but I don't think I actually started watching it and understanding what it was until about 95 maybe. And it probably lasted until 98 when I started high school, because nobody really watched it then, like, and I couldn't get anybody to watch it. Plus South Park was out at that time, and Final Fantasy was released on so other things replaced it. So
well, that's really an interesting point too, though, is because I think that this show is amazing. Like, the history of it's amazing, but it's particularly better experienced when you're watching it with someone else in the room.
True.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's really rare. I mean, you always want to watch TV shows with someone else, but most comedy shows, that doesn't really matter. Like, most comedy shows, if they're good comedy, you can just sit and enjoy them and laugh, and it's really no big deal. But there were so many weird references, especially being in junior high, and this being really my first experience with whatever the hell Midwestern sense of humor was, which is its own genre of comedy. Like, it's really unique, and it's not quite Canadian, but it's getting there. Like, it's
not quite Canadian.
So true. It's so true.
It's. I mean, like, it's not quite that, but it's really funny. Like, you've got enough American references, but, like, the really dry aspect, you're like, was that a joke? But
what was it? I don't know what's going on here, but
So I remember we first started watching it when Joel was there.
Yeah.
And then Joel ended, and I'm not to be jumping around, but this is just kind of my overall
go for it.
So, like, we started watching with Joel and got maybe a full season and a half, and I still feel like Joel's my favorite of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we got
the Doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
we got man, we can go off on tons of more tangents on that one, but that's so true.
No.
So there was another 2.5 seasons, and I remember that, or however many, 2.5 seasons before the movie came out, and the movie happened between the end of the Comedy Central run, which at the time felt like the end.
Yeah.
And the sci-fi stuff. So I remember the last Comedy Central show, which I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I haven't double-checked this, but I'm almost positive it was Laser Blast.
I think it was Laser Blast.
What, the movie?
And the only reason, the movie was Laser Blast. And the only reason I remember that so much is because, again, Jared McAllister and I watched this stuff religiously for like 3 years up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we knew it was going to be the last one because they had been mentioning it on like TV and we had been reading about it. And we had like a watch party.
Yeah.
Like he came over to my house, and this was 1996, so I was 14. We were both 14 and having like this watch party and super bummed but having a blast all the same time.
Yeah.
And we were so naive. We were so naive that summer because we were like, oh man, the movie's coming out. We got to make sure we pay attention if it comes to Charleston.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, that movie never saw the light of day in the whole state.
No.
You know, like that movie's distribution was so low.
Honestly, I don't think I ever saw the actual movie.
No.
It was out on Laserdisc. I remember.
I rented it.
I've seen it a lot since then for obvious reasons now in the world of like anytime, anywhere distribution. But like, I remember I bought it on VHS however many couple of years later. But I remember it was 3 or 4 months after that movie came out and it never saw the light of day in West Virginia. And we were still checking the newspapers. I was like, maybe.
Why isn't this out? Why? How can people not watch this?
Yeah, and I'm sure at the time we were like, do they know how many people they're missing out on for viewership? Which is just absurd because like nobody gave a shit in West Virginia. But I mean, it was crazy. We were super, super real. And especially like this was a handful of years before the internet. And it felt like, especially in Logan County, it felt like literally Jared and I were the only ones watching it. And it felt like we were the only ones on the entire planet that really got it.
That understood it.
Yeah, that understood it and had that connection. And it's weird because I feel like people, not just kids today, but like people don't really get a chance to have that feeling anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like with the internet and Netflix and Hulu and Anytime Everywhere, like you don't get to sit if you're born and raised or if you're living in like a really rural area, you don't get a chance to experience something on TV and the movies where you're like, man, I have finally found a gem. Because odds are you found it on Netflix, and if you found it on Netflix, you're not the one that found the gem. You know, like it's just different, and it was a really cool kind of organic experience in that way.
Very cool.
The movie is also the one, and I don't think I've ever seen the movie in its entirety, but I've seen the ending of it. Now, don't they turn around and they riff on the credits? Isn't that this one? Is this the same one, or is that something else I'm thinking of?
I can't really remember if they riff on the credits or not at the end of the movie. I know that the end of the movie, that Michael or is it Mike? They finally make their way back to Earth, and it shows Tom. I think maybe Tom Servo and Crow in an apartment together.
I don't remember that at all. I
remember that.
I remember watching the classic, just them watching this island Earth, you know, and watching that aspect of it. I don't remember, and that's something we can touch on a little bit later. Like it was really rare, in junior high that I watched to the end of a Mystery Science Theater episode, just because at the time, again, I'm in junior high, and they typically started at like 11:30 p.m.
It was. This was not an early start for.
Well, you know what's funny is to this day I still get sleepy watching these episodes just because that's the natural pattern.
That's natural. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And that's like I'm watching them, and like this new season, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Some of those are some of the best episodes, literally, I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And like I'm still getting sleepy and it's like 6 p.m. and I'm like, I should not have done this. Like this is just the way I condition myself. But it's crazy how that works.
It's like taking NyQuil at 9 p.m.
Well, I mean,
man, I shouldn't have done this. I'm never going to wake up in the morning.
I completely agree with that because like it started so late, and they were only an hour and a half long, at the most, and so but stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning, sometimes was kind of like, especially when it was a terrible movie, and yeah.
It always depended on the episode,
right?
Like how far you went in. Like to this day, like everybody always talks about how Manos: The Hands of Fate is the best Mystery Science Theater episode, but I think it's one of the worst because the movie is so bad that there's only so much you can do with the riffing, and like the original I'm talking about. Like they've done it live in theaters since then, which is really cool. But like if you go back and watch the original one, like it is a slog to get through. Like it's such a bad movie. You can tell they're watching it and they're like, let's try to make jokes, but it's so bad.
You can't make any, right?
You can't make it, man. Like it's really bad. And that's one end of the spectrum. But the other end of the spectrum is like just the amazing classics that are hard to get too awful sleepy on, regardless of the time, like Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. And that's just so stupid. And like like the movies were almost like catered for this exact thing that showed up like decades and decades later. And it's just, some of them are amazing and some of them are not quite as good, but even the worst ones, you're like, this is just worth it for the experience to know that mankind made this at some point.
Yeah. And if you go to like Internet Movie Database and some of these older, on some of these movies that they've riffed on, it's in the trivia. I mean, they said, this movie was made on like $3 budget. This and this, and it was also included in this season and this episode of Mystery Science Theater. I'm like, how it has become part of our culture. This show that is actually made, part of trivia. I mean, granted, there people write this stuff, and that are probably fans of Mystery Science Theater, but I mean, people don't know these movies from the actual release of the movie, of course.
Right, yeah. Like,
they know it from this show.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Mystery
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that Mystery Science Theater has been way more for the popularity of these movies than the actual movie releases.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
They really have.
I mean, it's incredible. Like, on one of the newer episodes, it was, what was the one we were talking about, Josh? Into the Wilderness? It was something Wilderness. I can't believe I can't remember the name. It's in my notes.
Cry Wilderness.
Cry Wilderness. And I looked it up, just during watching it, I looked up Cry Wilderness just to see, I wanted to see who could possibly make this movie. And the only trivia, they've actually removed it, but Cry Wilderness spawned the popular catchphrase "bang," because the guys from Mystery Science Theater would always say "bang" when a rifle came on the screen. Like if somebody was handing somebody else a rifle and they accidentally pointed at their own face, they'd go "bang," and it was hysterical.
And that's one of the great things too, is that like every single episode, and sometimes over multiple, in rare cases, over multiple episodes, like there's almost always a running joke,
a running gag. Yes.
And the first time they do it, like it's not even funny. Like it's not even funny. It's not even relevant. Like that first time they do it in Cry Wilderness, somebody pulls up a gun in some weird situation. They say "bang," and like, that's silly, ha. But like an hour later, they've done it 5 times, and it's like it's still rolling. Funny. Yeah, no, it's like it's a snowball effect, and like you're like, right. Okay, this is really good, because whatever situation that's another thing that I think that Mystery Science Theater really gave me, is like a really strong appreciation for proper comedic timing.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that, because in on the original, I guess it was a local access channel. I guess that's what you guys were talking about earlier. There's a local access channel that it was on. Everything was completely improvised. Like, there was no writing. They just sat down and watched it, and they just said, whatever came to their mind. After they moved to Comedy Central, they all of the riffs were scripted. So what they would do is they would watch it once, I guess, to kind of know what was coming. They would write the jokes the second time around, and everything is timed down to the second. So that's funny you mentioned that, because there is comedic timing, but it's on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you like so one of the really funny things too is like I mentioned, we were super huge fans in junior high school, and I don't remember what catalog or whatever it was that I found it, but I found this Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode guide. And it was called the Mystery Science Theater 3000 Amazing Colossal Episode Guide. And it covered I don't even think it covered every season up to the movie. I don't think it covered every Comedy Central season. Like, it was made before the Comedy Central seasons even finished. Right. But I was like, that's awesome. And I read it through, and you kind of get a little bit of insight into it. There's basically 1 or 2 pages for each episode they do. And and it covers 120 of them. And the prologue, or some of the extra pieces beyond just kind of the episode guide pieces, I if I recall right, kind of gave a little bit of insight into like how they approached the show, and like how they actually did it. And they watched these movies multiple times before they actually did the recorded versions, which is why they're always like, we love and hate a lot of these movies, because we had to watch them so many times. And like, there's both good and bad in that, depending on like the quality of the movie. But I remember getting that and ordering it in the mail, and getting it in the mail and just being so blown away. I was like, I can't believe they made a book for this, because I'm clearly the only one that watches it. Like
they made $20 that year.
I think it was like $14.99 plus like a $10 shipping charge, because Amazon didn't exist. Yeah. But like before Amazon, that was kind of like the way it worked.
What you did.
Yeah.
What you do.
Well, I mean, okay, real quick, history into it. If you don't know what Mystery Science Theater is, you've probably already turned this off. But if you, Mystery Science Theater basically follows the chronicles of Joel, who was he was just a worker. If you the theme song goes, in the not too distant future, and Sunday AD, there was a guy named Joel, not too different from you or me. He worked for Gizmonic Institutes, just another face in a red jumpsuit. He something about cleaning up the place, but his bosses didn't like him, so they shot him into space. So they put him on this satellite called the Satellite of Love, which looked like a dog chew toy. And he created all these robots to keep him company and to watch these awful movies with him. You have Crow T Robot, who is just, I don't know. I mean, he's got a beak, and he's got what looked like to be like a catcher's glove for the back of his head.
So the best part about Crow, we all know what T stands for, right?
The.
Yeah, it's the best.
Crow the robot. Tom Servo, which is like, he had a barrel for a midsection, half of a gumball machine for a head, a beak for a mouth, no eyes, and spring-loaded arms, or spring arms. And then you had Cambot, which is just a camera. And then you had Gypsy, which I don't even know how to explain what Gypsy was.
I always thought she was a trash compactor. I don't know why, but
I don't know what Gypsy was. Compactor. But so he created these robots to keep him company while he was on the Satellite Love, and they would always ship these, pipe these movies into him, up to him to see how long it would take him before he went insane. That was always my take on it. They would do little things in between. They would take commercial breaks, and then they would do what they called invention exchanges, where they would come up with totally ridiculous inventions. And then they would have little skits in between where they were making fun of the movie, just to break it up.
This is funny too.
Those
skits are hilarious.
Just to break it up, because you don't want to sit there and watch, 3 silhouettes on the movie screen. Go ahead, Josh.
Just a quick interjection on the Invention Exchange. I feel like the Invention Exchanges were probably the most Midwestern themed humor of like every episode of like the entire series. Like there was a lot of stuff going on in those Invention Exchanges where like, this is not really funny. This is just kind of weird in the way that some of the Canadian humor that you tend to see is, and you're like, they're just Canadian. But like that's where like the Midwestern aspect I feel like really came in, because whenever I lived in Chicago for a while, it's almost like kind of the epicenter of everything good about Midwestern comedy, but you kind of get some of the fringes of like that weirdness. And that weirdness is like, that's like the Canadian crossing the border. Like the Canadian aspect of the humor crossing the border. And the Invention Exchanges were definitely some of like the weirdest kind of this is funny ? Aspect of the show.
I always found it funny, though. I mean, I guess I got that weird sense of humor, but I mean, it wasn't as funny as riffing on the movie to me, but it was still funny.
Yeah, I agree.
But it was just, and I guess even then I kind of understood why they were doing it, just to break up the monotony of sitting and watching 3 silhouettes, 3 shadows, watching a movie and making fun of it. So,
go ahead. Sorry.
My thing is, I want to ask each of you that have watched it, even the new episodes, is Crow. Everybody was like, Crow's facing the camera.
I know
Crow's facing the camera. He's not. He's facing the
screen,
the movie screen.
No,
it just looks like.
Yeah, it's an optical illusion.
Yeah, it's an optical illusion.
There was actually a page about that in that episode guide. Yeah, no, in the episode guide, because they get that question so much. And the page was basically like, okay, we get this question all the time, and not a lot of people are going to see this book, but at least some of you might ask later on, So it'll hopefully stop you from asking us questions later on. But they said that, like, he looks forward, but it's just an optical illusion.
Right. So there was always a big debate about that. I don't know why it wasn't that important to debate about, but there's always a debate.
Nerds.
You guys want to hear a really interesting tidbit of information that I just ran across?
Sure. Very much.
So Gypsy's head was built out of a now impossible to find century infant love seat. It's an infant car seat.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then parts of an ever-ready all-American flashlight were used for her. I mean, this show is like the epitome of like low budget. They literally were just like, let's just have some fun, create some cool stuff, and
string budget.
That was the big thing. Like, especially that first season, the first public access. Like I don't know if we shared it, but like before we recorded, like Ronnie showed us a picture. Like it was like puppets were really bad.
Yeah,
like, they look really bad, and that's fun because it's not really about like the quality of the production or anything. It's really just about riffing on the movies. But once like it got started on the Comedy Central seasons, like at least they look like what we all know it to be.
Yeah.
But once you do research into
Ronnie, it's like they only have like one color to paint.
Yeah, they're all basically yellow, beige, brown, bronze. That was the really cool thing that started this show is because Joel Hodgson just put all of it together.
Yeah, out of junk he found.
Yeah, it's stuff he found, and a concept that he had where he knew there needed to be some sort of puppet robot type characters, and he just figured it out with stuff that was laying around, and that included gumball machines and car seats and a barrel of monkeys, like game. I mean, but like if you sit and look at them today, you don't see any of those items. You see these characters, and that's
right. But
that's just a testament to what they did with the series rather than what they started out with material-wise. Nobody cares about that anymore.
Still there, though. Like if you look at Crow, like
they're all identical to the way they were those first 3 seasons of the Comedy Central years. They really are. Yeah.
So we've got this show that makes fun of these horrible movies and which is something my friends and I did anyway. We would make fun of just different movies. I mean, we would have what we call cheese-a-thons, where we would sit and rent the worst horror movies we could find and just sit and just tear them to pieces. And I think it was birthed from watching Mystery Science Theater, and which shows you what kind of fans we were. But this show was just brilliant in its own right, and it had such a rabid fan base. Now, when it started on public access, it got popular mainly because people were taping this, and they would videotape it. They would record it on VHS, and they would just send it, share it with their friends. So at the end of the credits, they started adding keep circulating those tapes.
Yeah.
And they kept it even as it went on to, and because it added to the popularity. And when it got picked up by Comedy Central, they kept it on there. Keep circulating the tapes all the way through it. Now, when it ended, the show ended, and then Netflix decided to bring it back with a new cast and same concept. They say keep circulating that URL, and they give the Mystery Science Theater 3000 website. So they definitely pay homage and keep to the heart of the original show in that sense. In fact, so much so that it's almost identical besides the new characters in it. So you had Joel. We've talked about Joel and robots. Now the two mad scientists were you can't even say that there were two mad scientists because one of them, I don't even know if he was human at some points. Because he was picked on and experimented on and almost killed every single all the time, but you had the two evils, the two big bads, whatever you want to call them, Dr. Clayton Forrester and TV's Frank, and that's all he was known as is TV's Frank. So they would engage Joel or Mike in the Invention Exchange, and they would play the antagonist to their protagonist, and they'd always send them explain the movie and explain and send them the horrible movie that they had to sit through that they were experimenting with. You could almost see that there was towards the end there was some sort of fondness for Joel, but his evil always took over. So Dr. Forrester would not give in to that. And then later on, when Mike Nelson took over the hosting duties, Joel stepped back and let Mike Nelson take over. He was one of the writers forever, appeared sporadically on there. They had some new evil, new antagonists, which was Pearl, Brain Guy, and help me out with it was
Professor Bobo?
Professor Bobo.
Yeah.
I kept saying I want to say doctor, but that's not right. It's Professor Bobo.
Yeah.
So it was just utterly ridiculous the way they would come up with this stuff, and it was just amazing.
And you're exactly right. I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you remember, Ronnie, when we were making those stupid videos in college?
Oh yeah.
Remember those? Like, this is, I honestly felt like that was what this was like. You know what I mean? Because we would just use, we had budget of nothing. So we would use what we had, and we would just come up with stupid stuff, And I love the fact that they just used what they had, and they used their own creativity to come up with Professor Bobo. I mean, come on.
He was a giant monkey. Yeah. And not giant monkey, but he looked like he walked off the set of the latter Planet of the Apes movies because they got really bad as they went along.
And he was telepathic, even better.
Mm-hmm. And Brain Guy. Why was there somebody named Brain Guy? What did he even do?
Yeah, no, it was Brain Guy that was telepathic.
Yeah,
that's
he was the one that's telepathic. Yeah, Bobo. Yep. Yeah, Bobo was just a monkey. And then Pearl was Dr. Forrester's mother, Pearl Forrester. So
I love it. So that's one thing that I really love about the new season is that like they've basically made the entire thing like a Forrester family bizarre experiment now.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Like now with Felicia Day as Kinga, like I think she's a really good Forrester. Like,
oh yeah,
like she's got a really awkward aspect to things sometimes, which is not a negative at all because that's perfect Forrester.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like both Pearl and Clayton, like it's just perfect for the whole thing. It works really well.
Well, the Return, Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Return, stars Jonah Ray as Jonah Heston. It's really fun because the protagonists in this always use the real first names: Joel, Michael,
Mike.
and Mike and Jonah. So Jonah Ray is actually one of the co-hosts of the Nerdist podcast. Shout out to the Nerdist podcast because it's one of my favorite, favorite listens out there. And so I've always, wondered about him. I know he's a stand-up comedian and everything, but when they first said he was going to be on there, I was really excited because I figured, this guy is really tuned into pop culture and nerd culture, and he would really do the Return justice. And I wasn't let down. So Jonah Ray, Jonah. Then you have Felicia Day as Kinga Forrester, who is Dr. Clayton Forrester's daughter. And then you have Max, TV's son of TV's Frank, played by Patton Oswalt.
I love it.
And Patton Oswalt is just, this whole thing was just incredible. I love it.
Dude, I was on board from the very beginning whenever they were setting up the Kickstarter and everything, and I gave it money, and I'm really so our last day here. What is today? Today's Monday. Uh-huh. So tomorrow is our last full day here at this address, and I'm really hoping that I get the last mail thing for my Kickstarter because it's the Mystery Science Theater mug, because otherwise, like, it's literally going to sit on the stoop here at our apartment for like weeks. Yeah. No, it's too late for us to put in the
forwarding address.
Yeah, a forwarding address for it to like matter. So I'm really hoping, but like we put that in, and so from the very beginning that I heard they were going to bring it back, I was on board. Like, I didn't care who was a part of it. All I knew that Joel was driving it. And I didn't care who was going to be a part of it after that. That's all that mattered to me. So, and whenever he announced, but whenever he announced Patton Oswalt was going to be there, I was like, that's ridiculously amazing.
I was sold when I heard Patton Oswalt. I was sold.
Yeah, me too. I think he's one of the best stand-up comedians out there, period, for me personally right now.
He truly is.
And on top of that, whenever they announced he was going to be another TV's Frank, and they said that the character's name was TV's son of TV's Frank, dude, that's absolute genius on the surface, and it just fits with the overall show's sense of humor on top of it. Like it's continuity and the sense of humor style of it. Like, it's so perfect. And and now once that it's out now, like, he's so good at it. Like, I wish he was in it more, but like that whole TV's Frank type style character probably shouldn't have a lot more like screen time anyway, just the way that character fits into everything. But it's just really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when I heard that, of course, I was excited about Patton Oswalt. Well, I was like, I was completely sold out like you all were. But when I heard Felicia Day was a part of it, I'm a Felicia Day fan anyway, and the fact that she's been in so many things that I've absolutely loved, and I've watched a lot of the things that she's done. Like, I was a big fan of The Guild. And I was a big fan of just about anything. She was in Supernatural. She of course starred and wrote and directed and created The Guild. I don't know if she actually directed, but she starred in it and created it. And then she was in Dr. Horrible sing-along blog with that was written by Joss Whedon, which I loved. And
she was back in like the original Buffy too, right?
Yeah, she was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer as one of the I think it was the last season. She was one of the awakened Slayers, and because there was multiple Slayers, but that's a whole different show. But so I was really excited to see Felicia Day was involved in it. And then I started thinking about, you got Jonah Ray, you got Felicia Day, you got Patton Oswalt. They're going to be writing it too. And they're going to have a bigger part of it because, Jonah Ray has actually gone into producing several episodes. And then I started looking at, I started hearing rumors. And then now that you can look at it, Joel Hodgson actually plays several little parts in it. And he's directed, produced it, written it. Kevin Murphy came back to, play Professor Bobo.
Yeah, Mary Jo, Kevin, and Bill all came back for Pearl Forrester and Professor Bobo and Observer. So I've only had a chance to watch the first 6 episodes of the new season, but all 3 of those original actors and their respective characters that I just mentioned are all in the same episode during one of those interlude moments during the movie. Yeah, like they show up and they dock to the new Satellite of Love, and they have this back and forth skit, and it's actually really solid because Mary Jo is Pearl Forrester and she's talking to Felicia Kinga Forrester as I'm pretty sure Felicia is playing Kinga, who is Clayton's granddaughter.
Clayton's daughter.
Yeah, Clayton's granddaughter.
No, right. I thought it was Clayton Forrester's daughter.
Clayton's the grandfather. Pearl is his daughter, and King is his granddaughter.
Okay,
that's what I thought it was. That's what
I'm pretty sure. Just at least in the continuity and the timeline that they were actually introduced.
Yeah. Okay. Forrester, so I got it mixed up.
Forrester. Oh shit! No, you're right. Okay.
No,
the mother of Dr.
Pearl was the mother of Clayton Forrester, and then Kinga is his daughter.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Hey. Ron knows what he's talking about.
You have one up to me. but like the really cool thing about that one is that like it's her and Kinga kind of going back and forth and like these hang-ups that Kinga has about never really knowing her mother very well because she's always out in space, and she's like, oh my god, my mom's here, and like she just docks up and talks to her via computer screen and then they leave. Like it's the
whole time she wants to get out of there. She doesn't want to like have anything to do with her. She's like, yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go. All right, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
The whole time, Bobo's like, we're not even doing anything. What are you talking about? And she's like,
shut up.
Yeah.
So they've if you take the original, which had what I was saying before, but if you look at some of the guest stars that they've got coming on as well, Mark Hamill. Neil Patrick Harris.
Right. I haven't made it to the Mark Hamill episode. The thing that blew my mind is like episode 4 or 5, like during one of the skits, like my wife and I look up and I was like, holy shit, that's Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah. Mark Hamill plays a character called Phineas Tiberius Mindslap. And then you got Neil Patrick Harris, who plays Neville Leroy, Jerry Seinfeld, who plays Freak Masterstroke, Joel McHale, who plays Doug McClure, and Will Wheaton just plays Drake. So you've got Will Wheaton, Joe McHale, Jerry Seinfeld, Neil Patrick Harris, and Mark freaking Hamill.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, so Will Wheaton shows up in the very first episode's kind of introductory process. Does that character show up later? Like I said, I've only watched the first 6.
No, he was only in 1.
Okay, so like he had a pretty decent bit during that.
Yeah,
right. I think I'm more excited for Will Wheaton to actually be doing something now. You know what I mean? Like, I love Will Wheaton in the Next Generation. Like everybody wanted to be Will Wheaton. You know what I mean? Everybody wanted to be the kid on the starship. You know.
Well, especially our age, because that was like,
I know.
You're like, man, like that's kind of the general age range that you're watching. It's like, man, like I could be there right now.
And you could do a way better job than Wesley Crusher, and because it was always Wesley. But
did they ever reveal who like his dad was? Like who was Beverly knocking boots with? Yeah,
I don't know.
It was number 2.
But anyway,
not that I remember.
I am number
Dr.
2.
Crusher's first name.
Beverly.
So anyway, enough Star Trek. But so you take the original Mystery Science Theater and just how they all, of course, had to break for a commercial and everything. So you always, when they would send the movie to them, they would say, "We've got movie sign," and they would hit the button, and everything would start. The alarm would go off, everything would start shaking, and then they would open the vault. There was 6 vaults in total, I believe it was, and they would open up the vault doors, and they would go in, and you'd be in a theater with them, watching this movie as they just absolutely tore it apart. And it was some of the funniest stuff that I've ever heard of in my life. And so they kept true to all of that with the Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Return. They still have commercial breaks.
You know what? I'm so glad they did that, because it keeps the general feel that you still had for the original. And I feel like people that are watching it brand new, I really hope that doesn't take away for them.
No.
That's all a key nod to the original watchers, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just basically, they've even said this is supposed to signify a commercial break. But being on Netflix, we don't have commercials, so we're just going to sit here. And then
I love that Patton is pretty much the primary one, like talking through those two. Like it's just like it's maybe a 5 to 7 second thing break where Patton's like, this is the he does like 2 or 3 sentences about the episode, the movie they're watching, and how like just deadpan 2 or 3 sentences deadpan stupidity that they're watching. And then my favorite thing at the end of every few sentences, Moon 13, the moon.
Yeah. That's how he ends up.
Yeah.
You're watching Moon 13, the moon. Really?
Like that's the city-state name of the place that they're doing it from. I love that.
So they've kept true to a lot of things while adding their own little twist to it. The Skeleton Crew, the band that plays, which is, there's an actual band named Skeleton Crew, but this is a different, The Skeleton Crew, which is made for the show, which has like a ska kind of feel to it. And then it seems like the show is bigger. There's bigger sets. There's a bigger feel to it, which I appreciate. And they actually they acknowledge the audience and the fact that they're watching a Netflix series. And they say, like, I remember on one of the Christmas episodes, there's a Christmas episode where they watch the Christmas That Almost Wasn't. And
I'm so excited to watch that one. The Christmas episode is so gold.
It's so bad. So they were like, happy holidays from this, and King of Felicia Day's like, oh, we don't even know if they're actually watching. We're a binge watch show. We don't even know if they're actually watching it at Christmas time. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. It's so intelligent to actually acknowledge the fact that they're on Netflix. They call it a Netflix original, which it is. Netflix actually brought it back because of the Kickstarter. And they have their own feel to it. Now, as flawless as we find the original series to be, because when you look at the original series, one of the most popular movies that they ever riffed was Manos Hands of Fate, which literally is Hands of Fate.
That's what it is. Hands. Yeah, that's the Hands of Fate.
The Hands of Fate. So you look at it, some of the movies, there's 199 episodes of this. So they did almost 200. They did almost 200 movies.
And the last ones in a day.
Yeah, the very last episode they ever did was Diabolic, spelled Diabolik. That was the very last episode they ever did.
That was the last Sci-Fi Channel
episode ever. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the last Comedy Central one they did was Laser Blast.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So Laser Blast was just amazing.
So good.
So 11 seasons, if you count the original, the first one. So they ran from 88 to 99. And then this one starts off with 14 episodes and starting in this year, 2017. So I remember not, they did like Soul Taker, Girl in Gold Boots, Diabolic, Laser Blast, Teenagers from Outer Space, Being from Another Planet, Attack of the Giant Leeches, Gamera versus I can't even say that. Earth versus the
Dude
Spider.
knows Gamera. Dude, the Gamera ones were so good.
Gamera. Oh, I forgot about Gamera. I can't believe I just
the Gamera movies, like, and for people that are listening that like don't know what Gamera is, like Gamera,
he's a giant turtle.
Yeah, it was like a cheap Godzilla knockoff. Like, and if you've seen Godzilla movies, they're not exactly the highest quality. And like Gamera movies are cheap knockoffs of that.
They actually did that spun around with sparklers in where his legs came out of.
Yes, and dude, like they had a song for Gamera, and it was
I forgot about the Gamera song. Yeah,
because
they actually did Godzilla versus Megalon and Godzilla versus
many Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
They did the best one was Son of Godzilla, where they had the tiny little Godzilla Godzuki.
Yes.
And, like, he looks so stupid. Like the whole concept of it was just like Godzilla had a baby child Godzilla, and it was as dumb as you can fathom it would be if you've never seen it. Like, it's so dumb and it's just so perfect. But then they were able to get the rights for Gamera, and it's the same thing without as much personality as Godzilla delivers.
Yeah.
And then one last point about some of the like Japanese monster movies they did. I'm pretty sure they did, like, was it the actual Ultraman movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did
I think it was Ultraman.
I have not done the research for this aspect of it. But I'll check this out later. But they did one or two of them that were actually okay. I did a quick look up, but it wasn't Ultraman. It was Jet Jaguar.
I forgot about Jet Jaguar.
I am so offended at my own memory that I forgot the Jet Jaguar episode and song. But I mean, so if you've never seen Mystery Science Theater, and you've ever seen a bad movie, but you've also seen like any single one of the original Japanese kaiju movies, and you're like, this is a lot of fun and this is dumb as hell. Like that's the perfect perfect formula for what makes a great Mystery Science Theater movie.
Absolutely.
And like, so the Godzilla Gamera and that Jet Jaguar movie are all some of the all-time classics.
Yes.
So let me ask y'all this, just kind of, in your opinion, both of your opinion, if somebody who's never watched these ever, where would you say to?
And
then move to this.
Oh, start over. Adam, you cut out. We didn't hear everything you said.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. I think you said that if you were talking to somebody that had never seen them, where would you recommend they start?
Right. Exactly.
You
Ronnie,
could literally.
Do you have anything off the top of your head, Ronnie?
No, you could really you could literally start from anywhere.
See, that's exactly what I think. That's what I think.
I have a handful of favorites. I think.
Yeah.
That just the general tone of the show, you're gonna get it no matter what one you watch. And sometimes I really am against recommending my favorites to people of something with this much content, because if they watch the favorites and they watch all the other ones, they're like, well, maybe they're not as good. Maybe for them, I don't know. But it's personal,
a subjective thing.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, honest, and this isn't just to reference what we just talked about. Literally any of the Gamera movies, I want to say they did like 4 or 5 or 6 of them. Mm-hmm. They did 3 or 4 or 5 Godzilla movies. They did the Jet Jaguar movie, which I don't remember the name of, but I'm really hoping is just Jet Jaguar for the sake of reference and time. I would also recommend Pod People. That was during the 91-92 season. That was episode 303. They did like 2 or 3 or 4 different Gamera episodes that season 2. The Jet Jaguar movie, I think, is actually called Mighty Jack.
Yes.
It's episode 314. That's also season 3. Killer Shrews is really good. I would recommend any of the Hercules movies. Any of the Hercules movies that they did, those were all absolutely fucking stupid and really good. Sorry, I'm kind of going off maybe the preferred script. Mitchell was amazing. That was a Joel episode. I'm just kind of going through some of my favorites, which again were kind of Joel ones. But yeah, I mean, I could go. I could really waste a lot of time doing this, but I'm going to stop there and also end with one more. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is ridiculous.
You took the exact one I was going to.
Sorry, I wanted to stop because I'm probably taking other people's ones. And of the 6 that I've seen, Cry Wilderness honestly is a top 5, top 10 all time. Period. That's amazing, and that's one of the newer ones. It's incredible.
Yeah. Now, as far as for me, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, any Godzilla, because you're going to recognize Godzilla no matter what. And then start with the Joel era, and then work your way into the Mike era.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can bounce around in the Joel era and be completely safe, no matter where you start. Season 1, season 4, season 2, whatever.
And I feel like you could probably do the same thing in the Mike era. I just didn't watch it as regularly at that, just because of the time frame that I was able to watch them.
Right. And I was kind of not upset, but I was kind of like, oh, they changed. I don't want to get into this if they changed guys. And what happened to Joel? And then I was
really bummed out and almost bitter too.
Yeah.
And you know what Adam said earlier is really directly relevant here about the whole Doctor Who thing, and we won't get into Doctor Who itself.
Thank God.
But it's true though, because like whenever you get close to a doctor, you're all pumped about it, and then he regenerates into somebody else, and you're like, I don't even give a shit. I don't even want to watch anymore. And that's the way I was whenever it changed from Joel to Mike at first. But because my friend Jared and I had such a regular tradition of watching, we're like, we're going to watch them, but like, I'm not going to like them.
Yeah.
And then like 2 or 3 weeks into it, we got like a new episode every week. Like 2 or 3 weeks in, we were like, oh, all right, this is pretty awesome. It was just like, at least it's still around. Like we're so happy to be watching. It was still really good.
It was only until after I realized that Mike was a writer on the show that I was like, okay, it'll be all right then. So going into the new stuff, you can bounce around to the new season as well and not really have to worry about anything except for there's an ongoing storyline later on that you might, you should really watch it from 1 to 14.
Yeah, you should watch it in order, which is very different for this series as a whole.
But as far as the movies go, it doesn't matter. Now, I've seen it get a lot of love. I've seen it get a lot of love online, but I've also seen it get some hate too.
I've not read a ton. I've not jumped into the old internet black hole in that regard.
I have, unfortunately, but I think Adam has joined us once again. Yeah,
from the hills.
Yeah. He is with us. In what aspect, I don't know.
What layer of his personality can function within that darkness?
But so as I watched it, I was like, this is absolutely perfect. This is dead on. This is everything I've ever wanted in a return. They've hit everything. They've hit the personalities. They've hit, even Crow and Tom Servo sound almost identical to what they used to sound like, which, believe it or not, would, meant something to a lot of people.
Yeah, it really did. And it sounded perfectly fine. And more than the sound of the tone of the voice was that they got the tone and the candor of the characters' speech patterns, if that makes sense. Like,
absolutely.
Because if you're a new person doing the vocals of a puppet character, like that's pretty important, right? I mean, that's really what makes that particular character.
You can't.
And they did really well. They did really.
You can't
well
have Big Bird with a Brooklyn accent. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends. It really relies on how they sound and the delivery in which they speak and all that manner of things. And I actually think that the sound of the voices was very close, but I almost feel like the delivery of their pattern of delivery, if you will, was actually even better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Tom Servo's the deadpan. He's the straight man of the group. He's always the one that is funny without meaning to be funny half the time. Sarcastic, things like that. Crow is the crazy one. So they have the speech pattern and everything down. Can't really. I mean, I find nothing to complain about with that.
So one thing too is that I know that you and I were texting each other about a week ago, and you were not really sure on Gypsy. And Gypsy has always been pretty secondary, but I like that they've given her a scotch more in the new thing, because she does a little bit more this time around, and I like that because I never really understood what she was all about in the original series, and you get a little bit more, but I wish there was a little bit more Gypsy still even.
Yeah, I get that.
It's just not enough to understand that you like her or don't. There's just not enough content,
right. The thing is about it is if they're going to make Gypsy spoke quite a bit more than she does in this one, in the old one, but it was obviously a guy doing a really high pitched silly voice. Hey, kind of
the new one.
No, the old one.
I was gonna say the new one's a woman. That's rude.
The new one, the new one is a woman. Very, very, very normal speaking voice, quote unquote normal. And she does a very good job, but she just doesn't have enough. I mean, it's just
not enough content for you to be like, it's funny.
Yeah, it's not funny. I mean, to me, it's not funny at all because
it's just not enough. It's not enough for me to. Yeah. Here's the thing. So and this may be spoilery. So don't give this away for me because, like I said, I've only watched six of the 14 new ones. But at the beginning of every episode, once you get in the theater, she drops a suitcase or something.
Yeah.
Is that explained later on?
Never.
Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the first episode, I was like, that's kind of weird. I'll keep watching because I know how they build on stuff throughout an episode. And then okay, at the end of it, I was like, okay, maybe it goes on throughout the season. And then third or fourth, and I was like, okay, it's the long con. So I'm kind of figuring out what they're doing with the whole thing. She brings down a suitcase every episode now.
Nope. Not explained. Not that I've seen.
Fair enough.
Because I watch these kind of later at night still, and I've fallen asleep on a few of them. I'm not gonna lie, but I do go back and finish them. I try to figure out where I am in it and go back and watch it. But I have not seen anything that would relate to her dropping off that case.
Just a quick question.
Continue. Oh no, yeah, absolutely. But I'm not a fan of Gypsy, and just because they haven't given her enough for me to even really judge whether I should be a fan of Gypsy or not. So it is what it is with that. The other thing is I wish they would. One thing I would change about it. One thing, other than give Gypsy some more content. Slow down on the jokes.
Yeah, so I saw an article, and I didn't get a chance. I saw it while I don't remember where I was. I wasn't actually able to read the article. But they changed the way they delivered jokes, which is directly relevant to the speed thereof, in that they chose this time around to not make any jokes at all over movie dialogue. So, as a result, and again, I'm sorry I didn't read that particular article. It didn't pop up at the right time for me to read it. But I assume that they chose that so that you can actually still watch the movie and get the overall content of the jokes, because even back to the first few seasons, like the jokes that you hear near the end of the movie are sometimes relevant to the content of the movie earlier in the actual movie.
Right.
So a lot of those jokes are relevant, and they didn't want to talk over the movie, I assume. Again, assumption. But I think that it's because of that, the delivery is worked into even narrower boxes. Like, you have specific times where they can deliver jokes if that's how they want to approach it during a non-dialogue point of time. So like the jokes, they have a lot of really good jokes and they want to deliver them at the right time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to defend it, because there are a couple movies during the first 6 that I've watched where I was like, this is overboard. This is like early era Family Guy, like
slow down.
Too quick. Yeah, slow down.
Yeah.
Cry Wilderness in particular, the first 15 or 20 minutes are madness. Like like the joke delivery is so fast, it's almost hard to keep up sometimes, for me, at least in terms of understanding the general tone of these shows.
Yeah.
But it smooths out, and that's almost certainly because the general flow of that particular movie's dialogue, in that they don't want to speak over the dialogue. So I'm really interested to see how that goes during the last. I'm actually looking back through here, and I've watched part of episode 7 of The Land that Tom forgot. So I'm looking forward to watching the last 7.5 episodes or so, and seeing if that's pretty continuous, in that it's a little too fast during some episodes throughout all of it, because it can be distracting for, at least for like folks like us that have watched it a long time. It probably doesn't stand out quite so much at all for new viewers.
No. It's. I mean, I've read the movie. I've read the takes of it on Internet Movie Database, and some of those people are just bitter people that have nothing better to do with their life than
so the internet.
Yeah, exactly. They rip on something that they're, I guess, jealous that they can't do. So they.
Well, I've always been of the opinion that, like, in a lot of different aspects, especially pop culture, like, Americans just like to complain.
Yeah.
You know, and like if it's not perfect, like, let's talk about what isn't, and that's absurd, especially for something like this that came up from nothing, and built like a ridiculous strong fan base based on literally like a public access show in Minneapolis, St. Paul in the late 80s. So, you know, like, it's
right,
ridiculous.
Exactly. Well, I think about it this way is we had some people on here. We had a young lady on here, Brooklyn Ewing, and she is actually she is doing a follow-up to her show, to her movie. She wrote, directed, and produced a movie on a zero budget, like no money. She did a GoFundMe or I can't remember, is Indiegogo, or I can't remember. I gave to it because I was so behind this project because she was so passionate about it, and she wrote, directed, and created this horror movie called She Was So Pretty. Filmed on one camera. A lot of all of the dialogue was improvised. Things like, it was fantastic. It really was. I mean, for being an independent horror movie and having no budget whatsoever, this was great. It was creepy. It had that feeling of dread that you wanted it, and it was an homage to like 80s horror movies, and I loved it. And so you get on an Internet Movie Database, and people are like, "What is this?" It says no special effects. This was this. This was this. It sounds like that they don't know what they're talking about. Blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, do you not read everything? There was no budget. That's why it was an independent movie, and for everything that they did with it, they did a fantastic job. And they're coming out with a sequel. She Was So Pretty, Good for Goodness Sakes, and it was set in obviously in the Christmas time, and extremely talented young lady, extremely talented cast, the whole nine. They did great, but somebody's always got to find something negative and pick on it. And that's what I feel like they're doing with the new season of Mystery Science Theater 3000. They just find these tiny, minute negative things that they want to blow it out of proportion. Like I said, there are things that I would change, absolutely. But it doesn't make it negative. It doesn't make me think that they're doing a horrible job, and it doesn't make me want to stop watching it.
Well, here's my thing. Like the way I'm looking at it is, I mean, how long of a hiatus did we have here? I mean, we had
from 99 to 2017,
18-year lax, and like our generation, at least generally and stereotypically, is a pretty nostalgic generation. And in some ways I line up with that, in other ways I don't. But in this way, like it's absolutely true. Like I had a blast in junior high, not quite so much in high school, but like I had a lot of really good times in junior high and high school, like I'm sure most people did. But like we're part of a really unique generation that was around when there was no internet, there was no instant everything all the time, every way. And we also are young enough to have been comfortable with that, instant all the time, every time internet aspect. So we kind of understand a little bit about both in ways that most other generations probably won't. So now that we went through this time, like I'd mentioned like quite a while earlier, where I was like, man, it just felt like it felt like me and Jared were the only ones watching the show. Like there's 30,000 people in Logan County, right? So like it felt like me and Jared were the only people that knew anything about what this was that was going on. And just to see it like brought back from the ground up, like Joel restarted this as a Kickstarter with no thought that it could ever be on Netflix whatsoever. That came relatively recently. That came within the last like 5-6 months. And the Kickstarter thing has been going on for like 12, 13, 14 months now, I think. So to see it go from this revitalization to this now is just amazing. And the first episode of this new season on Netflix, this is one of the nerdiest things I've ever said in my life. But like that opening scene, like the whole thing of Jonah going through, and you kind of have like a pretty good chunk, like 5 minutes of general story development. Like, the show is not story heavy. That's not what it's about.
No.
But like the first 5 minutes is a little bit of the story development, how he gets where he is to build up, the overall show. But like, dude, once the song kicked in and they did the overall tunnel sequence with the numbers going back and through, and and the fact that the number sequences, each number was a different room. I was like, that's genius. Like that fits so well into what it's supposed to be. And so that whole front end of it, the new sequence with Jonah, with Felicia, with Patton, with all of it, and then the new song, I legit had tears in my eyes. I was so happy.
Oh,
like not like just stupid crying or anything, but I was so happy that this was back, not just so that I could see it, but like, dude, it's been 18 years. Like there's so many people that have never seen it. And with Netflix being available, people have access to this. And I really, really hope that there'll be a lot of new people watching it, and it makes it even bigger. So there is going to be a 2018 season, like it's just so great what this is brought to people that I've known and talked to. For me, like it's just a really great, unique, first-time aspect of this style of humor that nobody had ever really seen before.
I mean,
I'm done. I went on a big. I went almost like a monologue there for a while. But
no, I loved it because I felt the same way. I was ear to ear, man. I just the biggest, dumbest crap-eating grin when I first when the first episode started. I was like, "This is awesome." It just, it wasn't, I was a little confused when I first watched it, but now, it's bringing back all those memories of being being the kid, the high school kid watching this, thinking just like you, I'm the only one in the world besides my group of friends watching this. Mm-hmm. This is all for me. This is, this is my humor. This is what makes me laugh. This is what makes my friends laugh. And it brought back those feelings again of this. They're doing this for me. This is what makes, this is, like I said, this is my humor, and this is what makes me laugh. They know me. So they're doing this, specifically for Ronnie Adams. Mm-hmm, and mm-hmm. I think if anybody's a fan of this show, you feel that way no matter what. I mean, they're doing this specifically for Josh Glanders. They're doing this specifically for Adam Runyon.
And the funny thing there too, you mentioned earlier, like the original episodes, like keep circulating the tapes like that at the end of each episode. Like ever since, even well before like the Netflix thing started up and the show actually started, like whenever they started the Kickstarter, before it was even fully funded, which only took like a handful of days or a couple weeks at most. It was one of the quickest ones for its particular category in the history of Kickstarter. But like even well before then, like they changed the tagline on it, and it was like keep circulating the URL.
Yeah.
And it was like the URL for the Kickstarter was the original thing, and now it's like the URL for like the Kickstarter, which can also basically redirect you to the Netflix, which if you don't have Netflix, it kind of gets you to get the Netflix. And that's the other thing. The other cool thing too is that like having been participated in the whole Kickstarter program, like none of us really anticipated that it would end up like on a Hulu, Netflix type.
Yeah.
If you have the $7.99 or $9.99, whatever it is, like Netflix, you're going to get it whenever you want it. So one of the Kickstarter things was, whenever you donate to it, you're going to get the downloadable version, and you can just take it wherever you want. Right. So it was really cool a few months ago whenever they finally announced that it was actually going to be on Netflix. And they said, look, you're still going to get the downloadable version, and you're more than welcome to watch it when and however you want. But we really strongly recommend that you do watch it on Netflix if you have Netflix, because Netflix tracks all the users, they track all the watching. And if there's more watching viewership of it on Netflix, that gives Netflix a higher likelihood of coming back to the table and being like, we want another one. So it was really cool to get my T-shirt and get my postcards, and hopefully, if we're still here, just because of our timing, like the mug and all that fun stuff. But it's also really cool to have the downloadable ones too, and I'll watch the downloadable ones from time to time. But I'll be honest with you,
Netflix, man.
Well, yeah, I've watched the 6.5 episodes. I haven't watched a single one on downloadable yet, and it's all been on Netflix. And that's solely just because, one, we already have Netflix, and that's fine. But two, I want to give
season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I want this to never end. Like I literally never want it to end.
So, all right, real quick. We'll start with Adam. Adam, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. Adam. You're good.
Okay. Good. Good.
That is going to be your catchphrase from now on. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh no, we'll get in trouble for copyright infringement.
For each new episode, and whenever we're introducing folks, that should be your next thing.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? But you got to stutter first. You got to stutter first. So you got to be like, can you hear me?
Adam, can you name me? It could be okay. You've watched some of the new season, correct?
Yes. And are you going to ask me which one's my favorite episode?
Of the old and the new.
Oh, I don't have a favorite episode of the old because I don't remember, because there's so many of them. Like you all were saying, that there's like 500 episodes that I probably have seen. I don't only have
199 of them, pal.
Well, it feels like 500 episodes.
But anyway, all right. What's off the new season? What's your favorite one?
My favorite one is the and it's because of the movie, not because of what they say or any of the jokes or anything in it, but it's because of the movie. And it's the Star Wars I call it a parody, but you quickly reminded me that it was not a parody, it was the real deal. But it's the one with David Hasselhoff in it.
Star Crash, man.
Yes.
Dude, I'm gonna say I think that's one of the top 3 worst movies they've ever done.
Yes.
Well, see, it's because of the movie.
And that actually had Jerry Seinfeld as Frank Messer.
That was the one where that's the one where you set up midway.
Yeah. Right. And it's just because of the movie, because the movie's so goofy and so stupid.
Yeah.
So poor. Like the first every single Mystery Science Theater, the first 10 minutes are always just a cluster. You're like, there's nothing happening. I don't know what the plot development attempt is. But dude, the Star Crash episode, it went on for 40 minutes. Like the first 40 minutes, I turned to my wife like no more, like no less than 4 times. And I was like, how many different storylines are going on? Like at least 5 at that point. And like it was, even at the end of it, I was like, this is one of the worst movies they've ever done, and they still did really well with the riffs. Like that, I feel like it's a double-edged sword when you do a really bad movie. It's either going to be like an average or above average, like riffing, or like just a total just tire fire riffing, because there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do.
Right. See, I like that episode because I'm such a Star Wars fan, and I know you guys are too, but it's I don't know. I liked that episode because it was just like I saw this and I was like, that's David Hasselhoff.
Well,
movie. That's not Star Wars.
You had David Hasselhoff, but you also had a renowned actor, Christopher Plummer, showed up in it.
Yeah.
And then Caroline Munro, which
is this movie?
To my knowledge, this is her second. This was her first movie.
Dude, Christopher Plummer was in this?
Yes. Christopher Plummer was in Star Crash. And then Caroline Munro was she was a Hammer, what they call a Hammer babe or whatever. A Hammer, she was in the Hammer films. And she's in this, and she's in one later on as well. It was riffed by Mystery Science Theater.
Oh my God, he was the Emperor.
Yeah, he was the.
Sorry, I'm just googling this. Like this is kind of blowing my mind right now.
Right, and I think that's the appeal to this one for me is like they legitimately tried to make a Star Wars movie that was supposed to compete with Star Wars, but
it was garbage. Like
it was.
Yes,
it absolutely was. But you could see where they legitimately were like, this is gonna be it, guys. We're gonna get Hasselhoff here. We're gonna get Christopher Plummer in here. I mean, this is gonna be so good. And then they released it, and you know that people saw it, and they were like, "What's this garbage fire trash?" You know?
the Luke Skywalker perm hair. And what, like, it wasn't the Emperor guy, but it was like the primary villain with the weird hair puffs off to the side, and he was the worst actor of all of them, and it was Star Crash. Like it was, oh dude, knowing that Christopher Plummer was that main primary like head good guy, the Emperor in this movie was the head good guy, which somehow correlated to Star Wars. But I'm so pumped to go back, and I'm going to rewatch that for sure now. That's ridiculous to know that's Chris Plummer. I'm sorry that I'm going on with this, but you blew my mind.
All right, Josh, what was your 2 favorite episodes from the old and your favorite episode from the old and favorite episode from the new? I always guess the new.
So I went on a big tangent earlier about my older ones, and this is not necessarily my favorite episode, but it's important nonetheless, and it's War of the Colossal Beast. Yes. And the only reason the movie riffage is average to above average, it's a good movie to watch. It's an overall episode, really good movie. But like during something we haven't really mentioned yet either is like during the original series, which I haven't seen in the first 7 episodes of the reboot on Netflix, is that they used to watch a lot of shorts before the movie. Yeah. So this is almost certainly the most famous short that Mystery Science Theater has ever done. and it's Mr. Be Natural. And
oh my gosh,
it's the best thing ever. Like, it's this androgynous. It's clearly a woman playing the character in this Mr. Be Natural, but the character is called Mr. Be Natural, so you know it's a man. And the best part about this is that, like, the main character in it's this kid who is basically kind of having a tough time at school, if I remember right. And like, he starts to get into like band at school, and his parents are kind of like not sure about it. But then Mr. Be Natural shows up in his dreams and in his bed at night. It's really weird because it's a woman playing a guy, but she shows up to help him with his band. It's just the best thing ever. Mr. Be Natural, if you can find it anywhere, just the best thing ever. So I'm going to throw out War of the Colossal Beast as my reference, based solely on Mr. Be Natural.
Yeah.
And then of the new episodes, I'm going to go a toss-up. I've already mentioned Cry Wilderness is amazing, but Star Crash is absurdly good.
Yeah.
And the first half of The Land That Time Forgot is really great too. I love how old dude pops out of the top of the U-boat and is fighting the dragon. Or the dinosaur on top of a submarine. Who I guess the dinosaur is kind of leaning in and eager to do that, but it's really good. They're all good. I've not really seen a super bad one yet of the new ones.
I'm gonna have to go with Laser Blast.
Yep.
Old, it was just the absurd movie, and they just had so much fun with it. And then Wizard.
I'm so looking forward to these.
I'm gonna count two of them as one, and so I've got actual 2 episodes. That I'm, we'll go with 2 episodes, but one of them is Cry Wilderness, just because it's just incredible. I mean, just the stuff that they did with it. And then I'm going to go with Wizards of the Lost Kingdom and Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2.
Dude, I wanted to jump ahead and watch both of those so bad, but like the first 3, I saw that they were kind of a little bit of a narrative, and I was like, I got to watch them all in order, so I haven't got there yet.
Yeah. Well, Wizards of the Lost Kingdom is they have nothing to do with each other.
Really? That's so good. That's even better. Oh.
They have nothing to do with each other.
It's everything I want out of both of them.
Yeah, and then there's this in the Wizards of the Lost Kingdom, they have this giant Chewbacca knockoff that's all white and woolly who doesn't really do anything. And then Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2 actually has David Carradine in it.
Yes.
It's so bad. It's
a young sire to a kingdom joins with a vagabond swordsman to reclaim his kingdom from an evil sorcerer. I'm so pumped to watch those, dude. They sound so good.
When evil screams throughout the world, when all galaxies converge, when all that's fair and Stefan seems lost, a hero will emerge. That's Wizards of the Lost Kingdom, the first one. It has a 2.7. Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2, the 3 kingdoms have been overtaken by 3 evil lords, and only Tyr, Tyor, is how they pronounce it, Tyr, a teenage boy with magical powers, can restore peace to the land with the help of a bumbling elder wizard and a hero in each kingdom. Tyr fights alongside them and eventually becomes a powerful wizard in his own right. It has a 1.9.
All right, so that got a 1 point. Oh man, you know what my litmus test was? Is I was gonna compare it to 2015 Fantastic Four.
Listen,
Fantastic Four somehow made it a 4.3, which is an absolute joke. But we won't get off on that tangent.
No, because there's a whole podcast of me going off on that.
Yeah.
Which Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2 has David Carradine. And Sid Haig, I think it's how you pronounce his last name, Sid Haig, who's actually Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, You would see him if you Bone Tomahawk.
So it fits the bill then.
This guy, yeah, he's definitely an exploitation film.
But
actor.
I mean that's why he would have been chosen for those newer movies, though.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's the best actor out of all of them. Because you can clearly tell Carradine is just he needed to pay off his floor in his house or something.
No care at all.
Just he's just like,
thanks
okay,
for the money. Good day, bye.
The swords in it are clearly wooden, but they still make a clashing noise when they hit. It was just both of the well, I'm going to forget Wizards of the Lost Kingdom. Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2 is my favorite.
Yeah, like the second one built upon the first one's strengths. Then
yeah, absolutely. Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2, the sequel, completely destroys it, and they destroy it as well. But Cry Wilderness is always going to have a special place in my heart. Because number 2 in the season, but it's just so bad. Stock footage everywhere. This Bigfoot costume that you can see the guy's eyes and his hands, and people who just laugh all the time for no reason.
God, I can't wait.
That's Cry Wilderness, yeah. So, those are it's just so amazing. So if you've never watched Mystery Science Theater, you can go back. They have like the best of on Netflix. You can also start from episode 1 of the new one. But please watch it, because if you're into just ripping apart movies and just having a good time and laughing, and I don't mean ripping apart like in a critical sense. I'm just saying these movies did it to themselves.
Yeah, like this is nothing really negative. This is all earned.
This is all earned, and it's all a good time, and you'll laugh, and you'll laugh, and you'll laugh. Please watch Mystery Science Theater, because especially the new one, because I want a season 2. Daggone it.
And also, just for added mention too, on Netflix are a handful of the old ones as well. I think that they've got about 18.
Yeah, it's the best of, or whatever they want to call it.
Well, yeah. So I think it might have been also part of the Kickstarter that they just did a general fan ranking of some of the best ones, and it gave like a top 10, and the first 10 or so that they posted on Netflix, the original ones, were almost a good chunk of, if not all of, those top 10 that the fans rated. So Manos is on there. We haven't mentioned Ega's on there.
Yes.
Hercules Against the Moon Men is on there. I Accuse My Parents, Laser Blast. Like, there's a really good selection of older episodes.
Of Spider Island.
Yeah, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is on there. So definitely watch them on Netflix. Even if you haven't watched them ever before, just do that if you have Netflix. And if you don't like them, that's fine. That's no big deal. But if you do, watch them on Netflix, and it gives them more reason to make even more new ones. So that'd be awesome for everybody.
So I think we're gonna end it there. We're going to. That's a great discussion about Mystery Science Theater. I really appreciate you guys. Josh, tell us what's going on in your life, man.
Well, this was supposed to be yesterday, I think, right? So I'm actually in the middle of moving. I've quit my previous job for a new job. I've been living in Albany, New York, and we're moving to Indianapolis within the next few weeks. That's pretty much what's going on with me. There's not really a lot that I do online currently. We do a lot of podcasts with Screaming Boy. We do a lot of podcasts with source material with our friend JC Starcher.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I'm really just on Twitter tweeting about a whole lot of nothing. Probably not entertaining to most of you. If you're morbidly curious, it's just at Red Parallax. that's pretty much it for me right now. Really, for me, there's a lot of college football I tweet about. It's obviously mid-May, so not the best time to do that right now. But
yeah, I'm
kind of just focused on what's going on with the Stanley Cup playoff, and that's pretty much it right now for me.
Adam,
can you guys hear me?
Oh my God,
I'm just kidding. No, you can find me.
Fantastic.
You can find me on Twitter at Adam is a nerd. I keep saying this, but I'm eventually going to tweet out. I tweeted there for a long time.
You did. You did well.
I don't do much with it anymore because
I won the office pool on that, by the way.
I
was betting everybody in our imaginary office
that money or real money
that you wouldn't keep up with it. So I won $1. I'm the only person in the imaginary office.
How many bitcoins is this?
your Bitcoin mine that you have. I don't know. You can probably actually make some money off of that
conversion rate.
Yeah, one Bitcoin
to the internet.
One Bitcoin to 12 magic beans.
1 Bitcoin
actually
equals, holy crap, money. $1 is 0.00058 Bitcoin.
So it is magic beans.
So the better way is to say how many is 1 Bitcoin is $1,700. Maybe I should start asking to get paid in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
But the thing is, a Bitcoin was designed to have trillions in circulation.
Well,
so you can use your computer.
So you'll get like 2 Bitcoin a month.
for what are you doing? What kind of crappy job is that?
It's like, oh wow,
that's $1,700. That's seriously.
It's like $3,400 a month. That's not.
It's not bad.
That's like 45 grand a year. 45 grand a year is basically what. I have to do the math. I'm not gonna be able to do it right now.
That's like on Eurotrip where they pull out their spare change and they give it to the guy, the owner,
and they live like
kings. Concierge of the hotel, and he's like, "I quit." He holds up the nickel and goes, "I quit."
How much money do you make a year? 48 Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. All right. So you can find the show on just about any source of social media. Facebook, just look up Screaming Boy Podcast. On Twitter, we are Screaming Boy PR. Instagram, Screaming Boy Podcast. Josh and I both have seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, so we'll probably be talking about that at a later date, later on down the road. And then, because it was an amazing movie, such a great movie. And then you can find the reason I mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy because that's what we posted last on Instagram. And then you can find us on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the Radio and Broadcasting Network, which can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and Stitcher, where you can find source material, Damn You Hollywood, a bunch of great movies, TV Party Tonight. Because They Made Me, I actually made Mark Radulich watch Silverado, which is one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite Westerns of all time. So you can find us all on there. We are having a blast doing this. Guys, thank you so much. Mystery Science Theater is now on Netflix. Please watch it because like I said before, Josh, Adam, and I, we want a season 2. So with that, for Josh Glanders, for Adam Runyon, I am Ronnie Adams. We're out.